The Biden crime wave, many people are calling it this, I think with pretty good reason. And I've been aggressive with Joe Biden, calling him the godfather of the current criminal justice system because he was somebody who passed a bunch of crime bills. 1994 crime bill is the big one that a lot of people sink their teeth into. But prior to that, 1984, 86, 88, I think were three, and many others, he has been passing justice reform bills basically his entire time in the Senate, responsible for things like the 3 strikes laws, mandatory sentencing, all sorts of major problems that we see in our justice system today, all go right back to Joe Biden, in one criminal defense attorney's humble opinion. But something interesting changed during the 2020 election. Joe Biden, somebody who is a big proponent of big, massive law enforcement and throwing everybody who did drugs in prison. As long as it wasn't his son, everybody else, mostly African Americans, as a result of the crack cocaine epidemic, Joe Biden wanted them all in jail. But in 2020, the tide changed a little bit. We saw George Floyd died, and the whole country was now really angry with law enforcement, very angry with Republicans who have been traditionally seen as big law enforcement party. So Biden and Kamala Harris now really milked in all of 2019 and 2020. It's sort of this BLM, sort of rethinking of law enforcement with a big push to defund the police. We saw that everywhere in 2020 during the summer of unrest that we saw take place very, very regularly. Protests, buildings being burnt down, 3rd Precinct in Minneapolis torched to the ground. We had many, many people injured, hurt, and killed as a result of all of that. And cities across the country were just defunding the police, saying, we don't want law enforcement anymore. They're racist. They're white supremacists. They're a bunch of people that don't care about minority communities. And as this pendulum was swinging the other way, we were on this channel warning, if you treat all the police like they are all racist white supremacists, well, they're just not going to work anymore. If you really want to defund them, they'll go find other jobs in other industries. And the cities will start to crumble. And the pendulum will swing back the other way. And then we're going to see even more law enforcement, even more totalitarian types of sort of watering down of your civil rights, your civil liberties, all in the name of justice. We're seeing it now with new gun reform talk. Gun violence is the new big thing. In the 80s and 90s, it was drug violence. Same Joe Biden, just a new wrapper on it. So now we're going to spend some time going around the different cities here. In Washington, D.C., crime wave taking place heavily. Murders surpass coronavirus deaths in July by 3-to-1 ratio. Young girl named Naya Courtney, 6 years old, killed in July. Number of homicides in D.C. beat coronavirus deaths by a 3-to-1 ratio in July. 21 homicides throughout the month compared to 8 coronavirus deaths in according to Fox 5 D.C. We have a councilman named Trayon White said, we've put a lot of resources and time into the COVID pandemic. We're in a pandemic right now when it comes to crime in this community. We got to start acting it. He said this following a July 16th killing of a 6-year-old girl named Naya Courtney. Statistic comes as D.C. recorded 100 homicides this year that was done by July 10th. Earliest the city has hit that number since 2003. So they have this counter in Washington, D.C. How long does it take to get to 100 homicides? This year, they got it July 10th. Oh, 100. July 10th, 100 homicides. Okay. D.C. Police Union said that average date over the past 10 years was normally October 25th. So we're a couple months early. July, August, September, October. Okay, so about 3 months early. In 2019, 2018, city hit 100 homicides in August, but the city reached the mark in July. So we're going up again, right? Over the past to October, then we go to August, now we're July. So it feels like, based on their numbers, homicides are increasing. As of July 30th, there were 113 homicides in D.C. compared to 108 last year. Fox News reached out to some of the people who run things over there. We'll see what they have to say. This is the D.C. police chief. Now, the question has always been, well, why is this happening? What's going on here? You know, we've been hearing from the Biden administration that it's domestic violent extremists, that this is domestic terrorism, according to Nancy Pelosi, that this is something that comes from the Proud Boys or the 3%ers or any of these other white supremacist militia groups that are apparently ransacking America. That's the biggest problem. And now it's gun violence. And now it's something that we have to sort of rethink what the Second Amendment looks like now in order to address this problem. Let's take a look at what the D.C. Chief of Police has to say. Hey, D.C. Chief of Police Robert Contee, you have all these homicides taking place in your city. You're in charge of this. What do you have to say about it?
198 people murdered in our city last year. This should be shocking to the conscience of every person in our city. I don't care where you live. It's got the attention that it's got now because it's happened where it happened, because we had an incident at the National Stadium. But this issue that's crossing our city, there are too many guns in our city, in Washington, D.C. Last night, before that shooting had happened, our officers assigned here in the 3rd District, they recovered a firearm off an individual down here at 11th and S, in Vermont. Right before that, a firearm right up here, 14th and Irving Street. After the sounds of gunshots, right up there. When this shooting happened, officers, within 5 seconds of the shooting where it happened, that's unacceptable. It speaks to the brazenness of the criminals that are in these communities that we're dealing with. Some of them are our neighbors, some are. And we have to really figure out what do we want to do as a city in terms of how we respond to this.
Okay. Yeah. So listen, I don't have any problems with that, right? What I see when I see this man speaking, I see somebody who's very frustrated, somebody who's sort of out of options. And he seems like he's engaged with the community. He's standing out there with a big group of people, the citizens on the street saying, listen, man, we're trying to figure this thing out. We have people who are just dropping dead like flies because of shootings that are taking place. And you heard him say there specifically, he said, listen, there was a shooting that took place. Our officer was there in like 5 seconds. He was standing right there. But the question, and so he points to this as being a gun problem, right? There are too many guns in our cities and they are being used brazenly. And so as somebody, who doesn't want to live in a city where you can just get shot randomly, right? People think that because I'm a criminal defense lawyer that I sort of embrace and encourage criminality. Couldn't be further from the truth. I have to live in the same society as everybody else. And so I don't want to be walking down Washington, D.C. and get shot over something ridiculous, right? I don't want to live in that world. Neither do you. Neither do the criminals. Nobody does. And so the question is, what do we do about it? And this man is very frustrated. He's out there saying, look, it's about guns. We have we have criminals committing crimes and there's too many guns in the hands of citizens. And so you might say, okay, as maybe a Washington, D.C. person, it's guns, right? There are shootings and it's because of the guns. If you agree with that, well, you'd be perfect in the Biden administration because that's what they think too. They think it's all the gun is the problem. It's not the person. It's not the city. It's not the culture. It's not the people doing the shooting. It's the gun. And if we just seize all the guns, then suddenly that's going to fix everything, apparently. So if that's the case, well, if it is guns, could there be anything else? All right, here's DC. It's not just shootings, folks. We also have carjacking, okay? We saw many of these. DC carjacking task force now nabs more teens, at least 14 13-year-olds in a week. We have 4 13-year-olds in a week. Carjacking. So many that DC police has a carjacking task force. They announced its latest a round of arrests on Sunday. Every suspect there is a juvenile, including one who's only 13 years old. There's at least a 4 13-year-old arrested in D.C. Suspects are facing charges ranging from armed carjacking to armed robbery to unauthorized use of a vehicle. Okay, so if it's a gun problem, well, then how the heck are 13-year-olds getting guns for armed robbery and armed carjacking? Because if they go to a gun store, they're not going to sell them a gun. So they got the gun from an adult somewhere, or adults are participating in this or encouraging this. But is that a gun problem? Or is that an adult child culture, nurturing, parenting problem? There's a lot. But they're going to blame the guns. Let's see what happened with these carjackings. They gave us an announcement here. Detectives from the Metro Police, they announced several arrests. July 31st, we had a 15-year-old juvenile male arrested, unauthorized use of a vehicle, armed carjacking. He had a gun. 1:23 in the morning, a 15-year-old kid, 1:30 in the morning with a gun out in Washington, D.C. Armed carjacking with another gun. We had another one. Also, Saturday, July 31st, 17-year-old juvenile male, Southeast D.C. Armed carjacking, another one. In addition, we had a 13-year-old juvenile male, Saturday, July 31st, also arrested. Armed carjacking with a gun, 10 p.m. at night. So, is it just the guns? Is it just gun violence? How are 17-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and 15-year-olds getting guns, going out at 1:30, 10 at night, 12:05 in the morning, and conducting carjackings? It's probably the gun's fault, right? Obviously. Okay, so in D.C., they can't figure it out. Same things going on in Chicago. They're also clueless. 461 shootings during July alone, which is really crazy because they've got some pretty tough gun laws there in Chicago. D.C. also. Here in Chicago, 461 shootings. 461, increase over 402, which happened last year in July, so it's getting worse. 614 people were shot compared to 561 last year. NBC pointed out the city saw a slight decrease in homicides. So more people are getting shot, but less people are dying. However, the number in July 2021, homicides was up over 139% over 2019. Breitbart reports 27 people were shot from Friday to Saturday night, which were the last 2 days in July 2021. 27 people shot. That's great. And the FBI is still on Twitter trying to find grandma. ABC says that nearly 50 people were shot by the time the weekend was over. 4 of those shooting victims died. 70 people were shot between July 23rd and 25th in Chicago, 12 of them fatally. Okay, well, that's good. So horrible, right? Horrible that people are being shot and killed in these cities, but I guess they should probably tighten up their gun laws there. Might be a good idea. Chicago should have more strict gun laws. That might help that. Good luck there. Okay, so in Portland now, we're going to go across the country. Let's go over to Portland and see what these yahoos are doing. We remember Ted Wheeler. Remember this fella? Ted Wheeler, that's what he looks like. Well, he kind of botched his entire city over there in Portland. Just kind of wrecked it, really. Let's see what's going on. Wall Street Journal says that in Portland, they can't find police for the unit to fight the rising murder rate, right? Murder rates rising across the country, Joe Biden's America. Few volunteer for new gun violence team. Why? Because it comes with more oversight and a mission to combat racism. Okay, so let's get into this. Leaders in Portland, Oregon, they're looking to combat a city's rising homicide rate. They want to resurrect a police unit that focuses on gun violence. Oh, but after a year of growing tension, they can't find enough officers to join. You're kidding me. Since 14 job openings were announced in May, only 4 police personnel have applied to work with the Portland Gun Violence Reduction Team, shut down last year amid long-running protests seeking racial justice. Well, I hope they got it. They wanted an overhaul of police practices, but none have yet been assigned. Portland officers say such positions, once considered prestigious, are now less desirable, given the increased scrutiny that accompanies them. The new unit has its own citizen advisory board, instituted after the old unit was criticized by city leaders for racial profiling. A job description says qualifications include the ability to fight systemic racism. Okay. The ability to fight systemic racism as a police officer. So we have officers, Sergeant Bob and many others who watch the show. And I trust their skill set, but the ability to fight systemic racism. Wow. That's a tall order as a police officer. Sir, think you're going to be a great officer here. In fact, you might be a chief one day. If you can fight for justice adequately. Yeah, I can do that. Sir, what do you need from me? Systemic racism. It's the biggest problem in our city. You're on it. You're on charge of it. I can't even get through it. You're in charge of that. Go out there and fight that systemic racism. I'm on it, sir. What do you need? I need a badge and a gun. Well, not the gun really, because those are racist. How about the badge? Well, that's also pretty racist because it sort of shows me exercising my authority over indigenous peoples in our city. So that's racist too. So I really don't need either one of those. What would you like me to do? Well, you can't respond to any crimes or anything like that, because if you do, you're probably going to be, murdering somebody who shouldn't be murdered, and that's a big problem for us here. So why don't you just sort of sit there and not do anything? Let us figure out the rest of this. So police officers are now being expected to fight systemic racism. I have no idea how. Daryl Turner, head of the union over there in Portland, said that they are demonizing and vilifying you. Then they want you to put you in a unit where you're under an even bigger microscope, which is exactly the point that I've been saying for some time. If, there's a lot of people out there, the ACAB people, the all cops are bad people, or the all cops are, the B word, and never supported that at all. And you're going to see what happens if you continue to believe that. Right now, I've said for a long time here, the bad popo, they've got to go. And we make sure we call them out vehemently. But at the same time, the people calling to defund the police, they're going to be ruining their own cities, as Ted Wheeler is doing. Following calls to defund the police, the Portland City Council last summer voted to cut $15 million from the police department. That included a 38-person gun violence team. So they're all gone. $15 million, 38-person gun violence team gone. They criticized them for racial profiling. In 2019, 52% of that team, they stopped black people. They make up only 5.8% of the city population. So clearly racist, obviously. Bunch of racist cops on that. So they're gone. City council said, get out of here. We don't want racist cops. After the team was disbanded, then homicides rose. You're kidding. That's weird. I wonder why that happened. Because those racist cops aren't there anymore. So, I wonder what happened there. Weird. This spring, Portland police officials proposed creating a new team. So, in March, so 15 million gone. 38 people gone. Homicides go up. We need you to come back. Then in March, Ted Wheeler announced a new police unit called the Focused Initiative Team. Oh, that's beautiful. So it goes from the gun violence reduction team over to the Focused Initiative Team. Oh, that's beautiful. Much better, much less racist. And said it would focus on lowering tensions with residents along with combating gun violence. So it's like lowering tensions by showing up and giving people massages, and then also combating gun violence. So it's sort of, asking them to do a bunch of both. The Democrats said an 11-member board made up of community members would oversee it. That's nice. So community members now. An internal posting described jobs on the Focused Initiative Team as focusing on the Portlanders most likely to be involved in gun violence, like the old unit. But it included a new list of required qualifications, including, quote, the ability to identify and dismantle institutional and systemic racism in the Bureau's responses to gun violence. Oh my gosh. I can't even laugh at, it's like, oh my gosh. So this next quote is perfect. Martin Luther King couldn't dismantle systemic racism. Now you want a cop to do it? That's what a Portland officer said. Nobody wants to be a part of something that's set up for failure. Mr. Wheeler's office did not respond to requests for comment. What a disaster. Absolute disaster. I can't believe that man is still in charge of anything over there in Portland, but I think he is sort of a perfect symbol of Portland. I've been to Portland in many, many years, but feels very Portlandy to me. No offense to any Portland listeners out there. But what the heck is going on in that city? Wild, wild stuff. All right, let's take a look at some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Pull up some questions here, our last segment of the day. We got some coming in from Thunder7, says Rob. I heard many police are moving to Texas and Florida and other red states. The lunatic left Dems like Lightfoot and others calling to defund the police had private security to protect them. Up by millions while the poor get killed, robbed, and raped during the Biden crime wave. Yeah, it's true. I see a lot of that. I see AOC, all the Republicans, of course, all the Democrats. They all have Secret Service and, security up the wazoo. But in Chicago, kind of on your own. Portland, kind of on your own now. And so these same cities that are defunding the police so that the police can't protect you also have very draconian gun laws so that you also can't protect yourself in that way either. So slightly problematic. Good to see you, Thunder7. Appreciate the question. We have It's Ed says, Rob, why wasn't the individual more honest? Why didn't he address the truth? How many of the guns were legal? I hear someone like him speak with such passion, but I can't believe him. He is being dishonest about guns. I think that's a fair point, Ed, right? He comes out, he knows what the talking point is, right? He can't come through there and say, well, these are problems with our parents not parenting their 13-year-olds who are out there robbing people. Right? Why didn't he say that? Why didn't he say that maybe our community has a responsibility to ensure that there's, anything like that? He blames guns. And that's what politicians always do because it's very easy. They blame guns and they blame drugs. They don't want to get involved in any of the other issues because, well, they can't really, right? He's just law enforcement. So I understand your perspective. Maybe I'm being a little bit too empathetic with him. Sergeant Bob is in the house. I was hoping to hear from you, Sergeant Bob. I'm glad you're here. Says, here we go. He says, retired from the People's Republic of P-Land in 2007. In touch with what is happening now. Popo leaving in droves. Okay, look, folks. This is Sergeant Bob in the house. Okay, so pay attention. Popo are leaving in droves. Surrounding suburbs and other cities are welcoming them with opening arms. There you go. Popo with looking or waiting to retire. New hires have flunked probation at twice the former rate. Applicants subpar. Emergency calls take minimum 6 minutes for response. Pretextual stops good for taking guns off gangsters, even if no arrest. Cops now prohibited from doing those stops. Homicide rate off the charts. If I was still working there, I would be on the last train to Clarksville. 24 years with PPB. I never once saw or heard of any police action taken due to race. And by choice, I worked many years in the predominantly black areas. Do not apply to P-Land. If you live there, get firearms training and be ready to protect yourself. The cops will not get there in time. It's from Sergeant Bob. And Sergeant Bob is the real deal. I mean, you heard him. You don't need me to explain it, but yeah, and I don't know. This is awful, terrible news because what happens is the people get fed up with it. They start demanding more law enforcement. The city comes back. They throw a bunch of money at it, and it's tricky. Thank you for that, Sergeant Bob. I'm sort of flustered right now because what ends up happening is I always talk about the pendulum. You probably get tired of hearing me say that word, but it swings back the other way. People come back and they demand a draconian response from the government. They say, we have a big problem here. People are dropping dead. There are gunshots going off all over the place, and we demand action. The government comes in and says, oh, no problem. We're happy to help. Why don't you just let us federalize the police? And everybody says, sure, no problem. We're so sick of all these people dropping dead, whatever you need. Then you have you have feds now in your cities. So great. We have Want to Know says D.C. police chief in the longer interview blamed it on the courts. Certain people need to be locked up. One of the best police interns I've seen in a long time. Police interns. So there's some of that too, right? I'm a criminal defense attorney, and there's some weird things going on with justice reform where police are sort of tweaking the rules a little bit, or courts are around the margins. We've got It's Ed is here, says, unauthorized use of a vehicle. I guess we need to make owning a vehicle illegal. Let's make not working out illegal because obesity is killing people, and high blood pressure is killing people. Oh, and lightning because that kills people. The issue in Portland says, just seems like a perfect setup. Government, let everyone do as they please. Don't prosecute them. Citizens, crime is crazy. Do something. Government, don't worry, we have a new task force. They wear brown shirts to demonstrate authority. We'll call them the SS. Advisor, sir, it doesn't sound good. Hitler and all. Government says, oh, right, let's call them the ZZ. Right. And and it said that's exactly what I was sort of describing with a lot less articulate organization than you have here. But yes, right, the people will clamor for a response, and the government will be happy to provide that. The government created the crisis, and then they're going to wait for the citizenry to clamor for a solution, and the government's going to be happy to oblige. And we're going to see the cycle come back around again. And you just heard from Sergeant Bob, right? He says, well, the new officers who are coming up, they're terrible. They're not any good. Why would they be? Because all the good officers said, I'm not going to work there. You treat us like garbage. You think I'm a racist white supremacist. I'm not at all. I've never done anything like that. And so if you don't want my good law enforcement skills in your community, I'll go find a community that does. Bye. And they pick up and go, as they should. If they're not appreciated, they should leave. And they are. And unfortunately, the city is going to have to deal with it. We have chairman of the board is in the house, says the solution to this problem is right in front of us. So easy. POC are overwhelmingly the victim of gun violence. Therefore, obviously guns are racist and should be canceled. Problem solved. You're welcome. Thank you, chairman of the board. Just cancel the guns. All right. It's very easy. Just cancel them. Just get on Twitter and, make fun of them, boycott them, whatever. Thank you, chairman of the board. All right, we have a couple other ones. Pinky2 says, wow, really, it's lame. These aren't gun issues. These are parenting issues. Rob, why do politicians do this? Their agenda? Yeah, it's about the guns. They really do not want you to have guns, right? They want you to be very compliant and just follow orders and don't ever step out of line. They'd be very happy if they could achieve that. Fortunately, they've got a long ways to go. Want to know says the problem is Portland police. They don't have body cams. Antifa takes private cameras from people forcibly, blocked roads, pulled people from vehicles. I wouldn't want to work and be assaulted, and I can't film. And if it was an officer, and the ADA won't prosecute. Hardesty Council won't fund nothing. Portland rated number 10. Remember, that's from Want to Know. Good to see you, Want to Know. And we also have Sergeant Bob is in the house, says, oh my, stopping black and Hispanics in high crime areas when those groups do shootings. Better go stop the white kids in the yuppie areas. Make statistics look good, and the shots continue to ring out elsewhere. Yeah. So that's from Sergeant Bob, right? The point being, sorry that the anti-gun violence task force was so racist, stopping people from shooting each other in these different areas. It was 52% African Americans. They were very upset about that. And how many African American lives did they save by stopping those shootings from taking place? Now they're not stopping the shootings from taking place. Homicides are up through the roof. What communities do you think are more impacted here? Is it the white yuppies, like Sergeant Bob classified them? Probably not. It's probably the other communities. And so who's the bigger racist here? Is it the people who are enforcing the law to prevent people from shooting other people of color? How are they more racist than the city council that says, no, we're going to pull that law enforcement out and just let those people just keep shooting each other so that as a result of this, there are less racist police officers out on the streets and there's more dead black people because you have some boneheaded liberal politicians out there who are trying to do good. And as a result, they defund the only unit in Portland that was actually stopping people of color from getting shot and killed. And they're the racists. It is so asinine, folks. The city's just going to continue to crumble under leadership like this. It's got to start with new leadership, and it's probably not going to, because I know the demographics there in Seattle and in Washington and in Portland and in Oregon, and they are not changing. It's going to be this for the foreseeable future, which I think is why Sergeant Bob said, strap up and get out of there. We have Jeremy Matreed is here. Good to see you, Jeremy. Sliding in here at the end says, Rob, hope you had a great weekend. Been staying the course and ramping up for the upcoming training. Love it. Thanks for the encouragement to take the tough road. Good things are coming, Jeremy. You're right. They are. Proud of you, man. Keep going. Stay strong. Keep grinding on. And you're right. Good things will continue to come on. And thanks for squeezing a question in here. Good to see you. Want to Know says, oh, that's the interview. So he's correcting a last question here. And Sweet Potato is in the house, says, but who's going to arrest all the people who refuse the jab if there's no police? That's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. All those COVID crimes that we've been seeing, trespass, and, oh, you didn't tell me you were vaccinated and all this stuff, or not vaccinated. All right, good questions. Let's see what else we've got going on. I think that was it for the questions, my friends. So let's give some shout outs over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We got Tremendous in the house. Pinky2, no doubt, is there. I see Joe Snow in there. Baranski's over here. We got Vincentius Prime is in the house, along with Want to Know and some others. Let's see who's over on YouTube. We've got Zulu Zeitz in the house. We've got Rebecca Caraway's here. Anita Reason's here, along with K Bean. Holy F moly, my S. What a name on that one. Wow. All right. That's a good name. Good to see you in the community. We've got Kenneth Reeder and many others. And all of those questions came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I want to welcome people who signed up last week. Big welcomes to Janoid. We got Sweet Po Tay To is in here, along with Jay Fizzle, CD Gorley, Truman HW, and Sif Thea. And then I will certainly update this slide for tomorrow with all of the new people who signed up over the weekend. I see you out there. I have not forgotten about you. I was just skidding in here at the last minute. We are going to be scheduled and queued up. It's August already. Can you believe it's August? We have our monthly locals meetup coming via Zoom on August 28th, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Available if you're a supporter at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I'm excited about it. I think that's going to be our fourth one. We get about 35 to 40 people each time. It's a lot of fun, and it's a good reason to be a part of the community. And so I'd invite you to go check us out at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. There's a lot of great people over there, and we appreciate you helping to build a separate platform brick by brick so that we're sort of insulated from some of the limitations on some of these other tech platforms. Really means the world to me. I appreciate all of your support. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for me for the day. I want to thank you so much for being here with us. We're going to be back here same time, same place tomorrow. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I will see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching. Before you head out, I want to just remind you that I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, we've got a long history of helping good people facing criminal charges to find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases and beyond that in their lives. Our phone number for a free case evaluation is 480-787-0394. You can also find us online at www.rrlawaz.com. We can help with any type of criminal charge in the state of Arizona. Things like DUI, drug offenses, misdemeanor offenses. And we can also help with clearing up old case records, like expunging cases or making sure that you can restore your rights so that you can vote again or possess a firearm again or apply for some other federal benefits. We can remove mugshots off the internet. Basically, anytime that you or somebody you know or love is in trouble with the law in the state of Arizona, we have an amazing team of people. We would just love the opportunity to help. And our phone number, of course, 480-787-0394. And if you don't need any legal services, that's a very good thing. But you may be interested in some informational offerings so that you are prepared if you do have to deal with the police. And of course, I want to invite you to head on over to gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. You'll notice here, I've got several different trainings that are available, including the law enforcement interaction training. This is the 1, 2, 3 rule for dealing with the police. It's one rule you need, 2 questions that the police can ask of you, and 3 responses if they ask you a problematic question. So that's available now. You can also get a load at my personal productivity system here called Existence Systems. Fun little course. And then we have here, if you're a lawyer or a legal professional, be sure to check out this program. We are meeting twice every month. Again, all of this over at gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. And if none of that sounds any good to you, well, just go ahead and give us a follow because I'm working on some other products and some other offerings. And of course, if you have not already done so, I want to invite you one more time to head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's where you can support the show and it's where we can connect. We've got monthly Zoom meetings and a lot of other goodies coming up. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for watching and for all of your love and support. I will see you on the next one.